All right, so going to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. First order of business, I would like to just put into record make a motion to put in record our meetings from last time. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Okay. First order of business, I have to apologize. I know I said we were going to have a presentation today, but I did not include enough information for everybody on the agenda. So I apologize. They're not going to be here today. I've reached out to them through Patrick to apologize, and I will get them on the agenda next time.
What was it?
It was going to just talk about neonicotinoids and ice gland and pesticides. So I'll get more information. I'll share it with you, and then we can all have a good discussion coming into it. So that being said, we are going to skip right to our next agenda item. And we're going to talk about the ice gland RFPs and get an update on that. And I'm hoping that Michael can lead us off with where we are at.
Yes, so we went out to bid with the RFP, properly posted it, everything else. We only received one response to the bids, but we did run into an issue. Because of the amount of acreage of trees that we're treating, based on the chemical treatment that was to be used, you can only treat so many trees in an area. So this would severely limit what we could do and didn't meet what we were putting out for as an RFP. So since the one company bidding was bidding on the entire project, and because we now realize because of the chemical agents that we can only treat so many trees in an area, my recommendation is that we always have a right to cancel all the bids if there's a discrepancy. So as procurement officer, I'm prepared to reject all the bids, which then will put us where we need to go back out to bid based on what treatment we think would be best in order to get the trees treated. So I know this sort of ties in with the presentation that was going to happen. And then we also need to think of the fact that we don't have the in-house expertise to walk us through this process. A little thing such as not identifying the proper treatment totals in a single area meant that we were putting out an RFP that wasn't accurate. I did speak to Ken Goach, who would be willing to work as he did the original consultation, and he would be willing to act as a consultant to oversee this so we don't get into this situation, because this is what he did for DCR. Even though we copied the one for DCR has larger footprints and acreage, and like I said, there was no way for any of us to know that this was going to be an issue.
And if I can just add a little bit more detail from what Mike is saying. Basically, what we didn't take into account was that since it is 11 acres, the Massachusetts regulates the chemicals we're using if we're using an open air spray to only using a certain amount of poundage per acre. So basically what ended up happening was when you did the calculation, we wouldn't have been able to treat as many trees as we were anticipating because we were using a spray application. That being said, the other application method that we did not put on the RFP, the injection, apparently there is no regulation per acre as such as what we're doing.
Sure.
That's what Ken said, and talking to hearing about this. So that is something if we go back and rewrite this RFP to think about.
And I just wanted to add that we use the exact RFP the state supplied us,
This was not an error on the part of Michael or on the part of this commission. We just, I think that the issue is that the trees are so large and packed into such a small space that the amount of treatment needed kind of is way beyond what they anticipated for normal use of this chemical. So it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like anybody made a mistake. We were just given an RP, we sent it out, and unfortunately then upon inspection, one of the vendors pointed out, I believe, that it was not possible really to bid on wind drain.
Thank you. So what's the time frame going forward if you put out another RFP?
By the time we put out another RFP, we're talking 4 to 6 weeks. Pretty much from the time of posting. And depending on when the central registry, which you have to have in by Thursday, the following Wednesday, we're in October. Temperatures are going to be too low in order to do the treatment.
Okay.
So we need to set ourselves up to come out first thing in the spring to treat as many trees as possible. Except for there's a possibility of a treatment method that is going to be presented as soon as we can hold a hearing and that another meeting, and that's what the presentation would have been about.
Okay. And what's the price difference for injection versus what we're going to do?
We have to make more. We don't have.
Significant.
Yeah, well, and that's, I think what we talked about originally was doing the spray versus the injection, the cost, we would be able to treat more trees theoretically, not taking into account we didn't obviously do the acreage. The other thing to include in our next RFP that was recommended is making sure that the chemicals are mixed on site with supervision, so that we are making sure that the amounts they are using are appropriate enough and are not undercutting. So making sure that we are having the expert vouching for what they are applying.
And the only question I have for you guys is if you decide, you know, look, the project that was canceled is a non-pesticide based sort of a tree wash that some folks want to come and talk to us about. I'm not sure that's right or not right, but to agree on whether we limit the number of trees and do it with the current method, which is to spray them, and maybe we can do 1/8, or we inject them and we spend more than the 70 grand, or we maybe do a wash and see if that works for some of them at a lesser, lower price. Figuring that out sooner rather than later is helpful because I believe we could raise some private funds to augment the money that the town appropriated. So for example, injecting all the trees, you decide you want to do that, but it's a $125,000 project. I'm confident that we just did a gift fund, we raised a little bit, about $1,000 so far, maybe a little less, but we haven't asked anybody because we're waiting to know how much we need. So it might be good to get the information sooner rather than later, even if none of the actions are going to be taken until next spring. You know, why not take the time to raise the money that we need to raise from, you know, from non-appropriated sources, you know?
And I guess to go along with that, we can go out to bid now with a treatment for first thing in the spring. So we could get those numbers lined up. Because my understanding, whether it's a spray or injection, you need certain temperatures and that the trees can't be too far along where they've basically gone to sleep for the winter. So.
Yeah, that's the other thing is because of, like you're saying, the 4 to 6 window, we've already been told that some of the trees have gone past this window with the current temperatures where we're at today. So by the chance that we get this all put together by October, I'm guessing the rest of the trees are going to be shut down and not be uptaking up into upper canopy. So if we do this RFP, it is probably going to be, like Michael's saying, no matter what, in the spring when the trees are ready and warm or warmed up.
And the money from the town, it's still within the same fiscal year, right? So it's
Yeah, I think it could be correct.
spring is okay.
And there's one other issue to, you know, Michael, you talked to Ken about maybe consulting with us, help us sort of manage this project. One thing he mentioned to us when Bob Leverett and he and I and the forester, Mike Morey, toured it in February was that the last 2 years of drought conditions, this is last summer and the summer before, had significantly impacted because hemlocks are very central to drought.
Right.
We obviously didn't have a drought this summer. And I would also suggest to you that you maybe get him back to do an evaluation now that we had so much rain to see like kind of that we have a little bit more flexibility. They may have kind of been had better defenses against some of these pests with the lack of drought conditions that we encountered this summer. But I have no idea. We really need the experts to come back and kind of help us tell if we're so desperate or if maybe we have a little bit more breathing room. You know?
I have a question. Are we going to do a contract with Ken to oversee the actual application? Because we do not have the expertise.
Michael, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so Ken has, oh, screen sharing is disabled. I think I sent out, I will make sure to send out an email. Steve from CTSB set this for automatic recording, so I don't have the screen share, but I did speak to Ken. He has offered to help us with the next bid solicitation, research the regulatory limits as far as application of any pesticide, oversee the work of the contractor on behalf of the town, conduct the follow-up tree monitoring, and monitor the mixture of the application for a consultant fee of $75 an hour. We still have money left over in our original consultation money. So I think this would be money well spent on somebody that can act in our interest. We ran into a difficulty because once this project was done, Ken had looked at the possibility of being a bidder on this, which sort of left us on our own, where we then just used the bid from DCR without understanding that there was a component that we were missing, and that was the per acreage coverage by the pesticide. So my recommendation would be to contract Ken on a per hourly basis to help us through the next stage.
So does that mean he could not bid on the
Correct.
injection? Does he want to bid on it?
No.
I don't know if he does or doesn't, but he wouldn't because he's willing to come on to be our consultant.
Okay, thank you.
So what I would do is ask that to be placed on the agenda for the next meeting of this group to bring Ken on officially, assist us with building this RFP and making sure that we don't miss any small detail, and have us prepared, award it sometime in November with a first thing coming out of the spring spraying treatment. And then depending on the presentation that we received, I think Patrick has referred to it as a wash by this other group too, and then see what we can do.
Do we need to wait till October to make a motion to hire Ken? Because I'm concerned if we wait that long before we hire him to consult, it's going to postpone the whole RFP process.
My understanding, Michael, is that I think we have contracted with him. Is that correct, Michael?
I haven't contracted with him at this point because his original contract ended for the assessment. The reason why it can wait till October is that we will be going out to bid based on this RFP for the spring. So
Right.
we would put the bid out in October, expect results back either in November or December, with a baseline treatment to begin once the trees begin drawing back in, coming out of their winter hibernation.
But I guess to your point, Shelby, do we need to make a motion to say that we want Ken to do this, or are we just inviting him next time to help us construct it and that's okay? We can just invite him.
Yeah, we can invite him, appoint him at the next meeting, and have him join right in. Unless anybody has any concerns about it moving forward. I don't have any concerns. Funds are available to do this. I think he is a qualified person to move ahead on, and I could begin working with him to get him in place and then move forward from there.
Cool.
Yeah, it sounds like a great solution. I just was wondering if we need to wait to get him on board, but it sounds like we would want him to come to the next meeting regardless, so.
Yeah.
Well, are you gonna wait for the wash
And then-
meeting for a month, or is that gonna be something that you do?
Well, I think that's another good question, is whether we want to hold a special meeting.
My point is it would be
Yeah.
great to have
That information.
meeting to appoint him so he can help us evaluate this.
Yep. I agree.
So, but the question then becomes, do we want Ken at that next meeting? If we're talking about a wash and he's going to be part of this and he's going
Yeah,
to
we
be,
can bring him right in for the next meeting.
so do we want to try to see to schedule a special meeting? To have the wash presentation and have Ken there and consulting, or do we want to wait till October?
So the wash could be done soon if,
I think we have to put the RFP out and it would still be in the spring.
oh, okay.
Because we still have to put an RFP.
Well, I think they'll do a test at no cost. And I don't know, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I don't think that we're gonna do a broad application of the wash right away. I think it would be like taking a small stand that in all likelihood is beyond our ability to treat traditionally and just do an application, like being beyond young trees. You just want to basically see how it interacts with the leaves and with the pests. And they're confident it's great, but I think that the step would be to sort of do that, you know.
And it's not too late in the season to do that then?
Not to test my understanding, that's why, but that's only if you guys want to meet again in the very short term. And if you don't, then basically, you know, my concern is just, you know, and another reason to get Ken on board is if the trees have recovered a little, then we're not under any pressure. We just don't have the data yet to know if, like with all the rain we had, if they're doing better. Because if they're doing better, then maybe we're not in a desperate situation. But if we are still sort of like looking at half the trees in poor health, we may want to do the test sooner rather than later, you know? Just because they're gonna die anyway, otherwise.
Well, I want to be careful here too, because since we do not know what this wash is.
Yeah, we don't.
We do not know what capabilities or incapabilities, and weather-wise, like to your point, whatever the weather does, we might not be able to do any of this if we have an early winter. The other fact is, to my understanding, is the winter is going to be a big factor of how many woolly adelgids do die. That's what has kept the woolly adelgids away from everything that I've been hearing.
It's negative 35.
Yeah. So if we have a really harsh winter,
Yeah.
that's going to be another telling sign.
Not likely.
Not like, yeah, I'm not betting on it. That's a good question about the elongated beetle.
That I don't know, but Adelgid. And one question on the wash that I'm sure you can't answer yet is just to look at the whole ecosystem, especially the soil. I would want to know how the wash affects forest.
Yeah, and I think I'm not.
Yeah.
So,
And I know you
think
don't-
you're better off putting on the agenda,
Right.
actually having those guys, the experts going to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know, and we're getting a little bit ahead of it, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to do it in October, great. If not, if you can do it sooner, great too. It's up to you guys.
I could go either way.
Yeah.
If it's not urgent,
Yeah.
we're not going to be actually doing it.
I'd like to just line it, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to just line it up. We'll have everyone come and be here on the next meeting. So I'll make a note.
That's fine.
Matt, you probably
Yeah.
ought to put on the agenda for the next time, contract approval.
Got it.
You mean, Eric, you mean contract approval with Ken?
Yes,
Yeah.
Got
very
it.
specific, yes.
And I will send around Ken's proposal to all of you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Michael, is there anything else we need to do on the RFP right now besides what we talked about? Or does
No,
anyone?
no other action needs to be taken as procurement officer. I'm going to reject all bids
Okay,
based on the information that we received about the treatment area.
okay.
And
I'll inform the one company and that legally eliminates that bid, and then we'll go from there.
So we also have suppression funding on hold then too, if we don't know what we're doing.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask about that. So we're going to apply for suppression grants. That would be for next year. Is there any chance that could happen soon enough to be part of the funding? You know, if we end up having to spend more money than we have, and it's a matching grant, could that timing work out?
I think I haven't looked at the new application. I was waiting to see what happened tonight. I think the deadline is end of October.
Right.
And we would have to be very clear about what we're asking for. So it's going to depend on
Exactly.
what we decide and how much it costs.
So I wonder if Ken could help with that, then if we get him started, early October with our next meeting. Maybe he could help.
If we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love the idea of having Ken as a consultant rather than just a bidder.
Yeah,
There's so much value this way.
yeah.
Just so if we're planning this out, since we're here on the 13th, the first Monday is October 4th.
So
If we know by October 4th.
well, if we're going to ask him, and I don't know, Michael, how you're thinking about this, but if we're going to actually ask him to help with the suppression grant, I don't know if that's enough time. If we should meet sooner.
I can talk with him about getting certain parts started here since with a rate of $75, I mean, we have funding available, and I think I could move them along on just maybe what I'll do is ask them to just begin looking at that one process of the grant as one piece, and then we could determine the pieces we're going to use them on. And then I could fully contract with them after the October meeting.
The one process of the grant, I'm meaning what? I'm not clear.
Just assisting us with the application
Okay,
for the suppression funds. So if I get them working on that right now, and then look at the rest of what we want them to do and bring them on formally after October. Like I said, we have the funding available. We would have been moving forward. So I think it's just time sensitive to at least get them looking at that application, making them understand it, and being ready to hit the ground running for that first October meeting.
yeah, okay. It's not a complicated application, but I think he'll need to know what our plan is to do it. It's a one-page narrative, basically.
Right.
So I need to know what the plan is to
And he
apply.
might be able to just prepare to assist us in what that plan should be
Okay,
based on what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
okay.
Ken's proposal should be an attachment to the agenda.
It will be, yes.
I like the idea of him doing the grant.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
All right, any further questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. All right, tree bylaw. You brought this up, proposal. Lisa?
I did, and I brought it up because it came up in a Conservation Committee meeting that the Conservation Commission was interested in more protection for trees in wetlands. And I thought it might make sense to have that included in an actual tree bylaw, which would include all town trees. And then I'm interested to hear what people think, but as I thought about it further, I thought maybe it didn't make sense to do it that way. And maybe it was more appropriate to have protection for trees in wetlands be separate, because a lot of what the Conservation Commission deals with is on private property, as opposed to a town bylaw, which usually is town trees. So I do like the idea of a tree bylaw, but I would like it separate from wetlands. And I've sent Matt, an example of one we did in Great Barrington. There's actually a lot of towns in Massachusetts have tree bylaws. So, and we can look at a lot of those.
Yep, and that was included in the links. So if you click on, there's the Great Barrington, Northampton.
And it's usually, enforcement by the tree warden. And a lot of them talk about replacement of town trees. So if a town tree comes down, the town replaces it with a similar tree, and protection when there's construction. So keeping, barriers around the trees, protecting the roots, those kind of things. They're pretty simple, but they can be really important, especially for some of the historic trees in town.
I didn't really see the purpose of that. I'm sorry. The tree warden under Mass General Law has the power to enact regulations if they're approved by the select board. I met with the tree warden at a separate thing. And right at this point, he's concerned about all the dead trees that need to be taken down.
Sure.
I have a real problem when you start encroaching on private property.
This wouldn't be private property. These are town trees. The private property I was referring to was for wetlands.
No, the one bylaw you sent out does encroach on private property.
Oh, was
One
that
from
Northampton?
Northampton, I read the whole.
Northampton.
Yeah, it might have been. North.
Gotcha.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm interested in protection of town trees, not private property, unless it's wetlands. I think in Great Barrington, it was just town trees. And it was specifically, we did it in Great Barrington specifically because when there was new construction or road work, there'd be a lot of damage to the trees, the roots, and they'd be nicked. And
When you were doing the Main Street, is that?
for Main Street trees and just for construction in different places in town.
Well, it seems, the DCR state document that you link to does include a section about private trees that endanger the public or private property. The public or public property, I'm sorry. And so, I think if the Conservation Commission does not have the authority it needs to protect any trees that matter in terms of construction or wetland habitat or anything else that needs to be protected, then yeah, I think we should look at how can we provide means by which the tree warden and or Conservation Commission can do the protection that needs to be done. There's respecting private ownership, and there's also letting people do things on their private property that are really inappropriate, either for the natural ecosystem that they're engaged with, or for the greater public.
So I have a question, and this is Corbin. What does the tree warden power include in terms of the town trees on the roads? And I have no knowledge of this. So what are the powers distilled?
The tree warden operates under, I think, Chapter 87, Massachusetts law.
Yep, section 2.
Section 2, yep. Do you have it there?
I have it right in front of me. The tree warden of a town may appoint and remove a deputy, yada, yada, yada. He shall have the care and control of all public shade trees, shrubs, growths in the town, except state highways, etc. He shall expend all money appropriated for setting out and maintenance of such trees, shrubs, growths. No tree shall be planted within a public way without the approval of the tree warden, and in towns until a location thereof has been obtained from the selectman or road commissioner. He may make regulations for the care and preservation of public shade trees, establish fines and forfeitures of not more than $20 in any case for violation thereof, which, when posted in one or more public places in the town, and when approved by the select board, shall have the effect of a bylaw.
So what's missing from that, from my perspective, is replacement of trees and specific protection under construction. Even though it's probably under, the second is probably under his authority, but it's not specified. And I think it's really
Oh,
nice.
No, it's under his authority.
But it's not specified in terms of what kind of protection to put around trees. And
But he could establish that as a regulation and it becomes in effect as strong as a bylaw.
So he theoretically could make a regulation.
Yes.
Is that, now, does the next town warden, can he replace that regulation, or does he need to get approval
In conjunction with the select board.
with the selectmen?
Once a regulation is approved by the select board, it's a bylaw. It's forcible as a bylaw and can't be removed until the select board agrees to remove it.
Gotcha.
So if you say if there are areas that are under tree warden's jurisdiction, but he doesn't have a regulation at this point, we could work with him to create regulations. You know, if our commission feels that there are regulations that ought to be in place, but they're not yet, but they would be regulations that he would be in charge of, we can work with him on to craft that.
yeah, I know he would be here.
I think before we move forward with something like that, we actually ought to talk to the tree warden about what his vision is.
We've invited him, he's been invited to almost every meeting.
I've been trying to nail him down for a couple times here. And I was hoping he'd be at this one. I put him on the agenda hoping. So, but knowing that, I think, like you're saying, I would love to see and hear from him very, very precisely what regulations he imagines would be useful, what he would need for support, and what we would want to make sure that we're protecting and what the trees are needing.
This overlaps a little bit with Tree City USA.
Yeah.
But I would also suggest inviting Molly Freilicher from DCR, the urban forester, because I think she has a lot of experience with this, and she may just be able to talk about the value of the bylaw also. So if it's possible for her to come when he comes, that would be great.
Well, and I think too, reading some of this, it does merit, whether it is a regulation or a bylaw, some consideration of just kind of laying out what we want to see moving forward. Making sure that the trees that are being planted are something we want to see for the next 100 years on the sides of the roads or whatever it may be, and kind of just moving that along so that we're ensuring that, and going to Tree City and making sure that we have, when our heritage trees and border trees on public lands need to come down, that we have a plan or know what we're going to do for them.
So, I was going to say, so, it sounds like, and I totally agree with Eric, we need to talk with Mark and find out, where he's at, and he may feel like, yeah, I would love to add this or that regulation, and we can work with him. So his province is public trees and shrubs. So then the only thing I'm wondering about is there anything that we may want to do, and perhaps talk to the Conservation Commission about this, and to Mark, is there anything that we ought to do to help to create protections relating to private land?
The planning board has the authority in the Lake and Pond Overlay District for trees.
Okay.
Patrick.
So this, what changes, one is the state has protections for trees and BBWs, basically in bordering areas to a wetland. And the Conservation Commission currently regulates that. The state also has protections via the Scenic Mountain Act for trees on that are, that are in the viewshed, and then whether on public land or private land. And the town in both cases has a town wetlands bylaw and a town scenic mountain bylaw that augments that. So there's already a number of protections in place around what can happen on private property related to those two areas of town and what those laws are. Now, I have no idea if it's appropriate or if you have the power to further regulate land that is in the private space. In the public space, obviously, actually, it doesn't matter whether, if it's a wetland or a scenic mountain, it doesn't matter if it's public or private. What the tree warden traditionally does, obviously, is manage trees on public lands. So, I think that, I think it might be good to just sort of do an inventory of what rules we have in place and make sure that we're either gently enforcing them or just understanding, what needs to happen to do that. And then, at least I know you've been working on performance standards to help clarify some of the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And,
I think at this point, it's in Michael's court.
yeah, whatever. I think that kind of lays out, the world of working trees as far as Lake Stockbridge is concerned, at least the current situation.
Correct. And just to be clear, I don't have any interest of trying to regulate trees on private property other than what Patrick said. My interest is the town trees.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the first order of business to get Mark in here and start the conversation and start figuring that out. So I will reach out again and try to get him in. Obviously, I know our next meeting might be a little busy, so might not be on that one. And I'll reach out to Molly at when we can have them all together. Any more questions about tree bylaws? All right, seeing also that Mark is not here, do you want to talk any more about Tree City?
I'd rather wait for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anyone else have anything to say about Tree City?
Yeah, I guess I do. I supported an effort like this when I lived on a 50 by 100-foot lot in an urban area. I don't get it, Stockbridge, I'm sorry. We're not urban. We got a hell of a lot more trees than people. And I just don't see it other than like a feel-good thing. I don't see a benefit.
One of the, when we had it is still going on in Great Barrington. Most of the towns in Massachusetts have it. Most of the towns in Berkshire County, a lot of the towns in Berkshire County have it. Benefits that I found were increased access to the urban forester, which was really helpful. She came out several times. She helped us do an inventory for the emerald ash borer. It didn't cost the town anything. It was free. She worked with the tree warden on that. It wasn't, taking over his job. He found it really helpful. She helped us do a town inventory of the trees on main streets. She set us up with iTree and so that the committee could do it on their own. And it also put the town in better standing for any grants they applied for. So to have Tree City status just gives you kind of a leg up on any grant applications. It's not a lot of work. I didn't see any downside to it. I thought it was a nice, something nice for the town to have.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think it just gives us access to more opportunities and puts us more on the map when we go for some of these grants.
And they also sent out they sent a newsletter about every month on urban tree issues, a lot of which it was very educational. It was helpful.
Is this the one through the USDA?
No, it's through DCR.
Oh, through DCR. All right.
Yep.
We had just done one up in North Adams through the USDA, which actually allowed for the purchase of trees for replacing trees.
Yeah, I mean, you become part of the Arbor Day Foundation and you can get inexpensive trees through them too.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't clear from what was on their website.
It was a little tricky to navigate, but,
Okay.
that was the only, thing. But if you do,
Well, again, I would ask Molly to come and
Yeah.
talk about the benefits, and I think, she can speak to it better than me. But I found it helpful, and I think the tree warden in Great Barrington really found it helpful too. He really appreciated it.
yeah,
Yeah, and even things like, shade trees on Main Street. I mean, Laurel Hill Association planted elms many years ago. Obviously, they're not here anymore. They've been replaced. And, we may end up needing to replace the trees that we have now at some point. It'd be good to have, access to expertise and maybe even some money.
yeah. I think also if we do end up talking to Michael Buffonigan and talking about some of the properties that they are working on and actively logging. I don't know where he gets the trees right now that he replants, but having more access, greater access, more diversity, I don't think that hurts necessarily. Okay. Anything else?
One other thing.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a date yet for the dedication of the Old Growth Forest Network? Are you guys setting it, or Michael, are we setting it?
Yeah, we could either be, I guess we can either handle that through the select board or through the agricultural committee. Set a date for the, since we joined the network, they want to do a dedication ceremony.
Would it make sense to do it with the select board?
Yeah, why don't I ask to have it placed on the select board meeting? Since it's a designation for the town, it was something that the select board signed off on.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe we can all plan on attending.
Oh, yeah. So, Michael, so you're gonna bring this up at a select board meeting then to set a
They're
date?
serving chocolate covered.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right. So we'll make sure that information gets out when that is happening, so we can attend. To sum it up, it sounds like next meeting, we'll have a lot of this RFP presentation on the agenda. So look forward to that. I will reach out to Mark again to try to get him on, hopefully the following agenda. Other than that, October 4th, does that still work with everyone? 6:30, Monday. That will be our next meeting. Hearing nothing else, I'll make a motion to call this meeting to order, or excuse me, not to order, to closing, adjournment. Do I hear a second?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.